Have you ever noticed how the smallest things can completely ruin your day? A delayed reply, a strange look, a tone in someone's voice. Suddenly, your mind spirals overthinking, doubting, reacting, and yet, you've probably seen people who walk through life like nothing can touch them. They lose a deal, get disrespected, hear bad news, and still, they remain calm. Not because they don't feel anything, but because they've learned something most of us haven't. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what hurts you isn't real, not in the way you think. You're not reacting to the world. You're reacting to the story you tell yourself about the world. And that story, it's costing you your peace. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what hurts you isn't real, not in the way you think. You're not reacting to the world. You're reacting to the story you tell yourself about the world. And that story, it's costing you your peace. Some people move through life like nothing can shake them. A rough day at work, they don't flinch. Someone disrespects them in public, not even a blink. Life hurls unexpected curveballs their way and somehow, they just keep walking, calm, collected, unbothered, as if chaos around them doesn't even register. Meanwhile, the rest of us, we can get thrown off by the tiniest things. A weird text with a strange tone, a car cutting us off in traffic, a random, unnecessary comment online. And just like that, we're in a bad mood, spiraling into overthinking, replaying everything in our heads. It starts to feel like we have zero control over how we feel, like we're just passengers in our own emotional storm. But here's something most people never realize. You do have control. You've simply never been taught how to use it. Those people who seem unshakable, they've discovered something powerful, something ancient, something the Stoics understood over 2,000 years ago. When you stop letting the outside world control your inner state, you unlock a different kind of strength. You become calm. You become grounded. You become untouchable. And that's exactly what this video is about. It's about how to stop wasting your energy on things that don't matter, how to stop reacting to every little trigger, and instead, start living with real peace and power from within. If that sounds like something you need in your life, there's one simple thing you can do to help us keep sharing this message. Just hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it means the world to us. Alright. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to think how much of what bothers you isn't even real? Not in the way you think. At least most of the time, you're not actually reacting to what's happening. You're reacting to the story your mind attaches to what's happening. It could be a certain look someone gives you, a strange tone in their voice, a delayed reply to a message. It's not the event itself that hurts, it's the meaning you attach to it. And here's the catch. No one ever teaches us this. We grow up learning to respond to what we see, but not to question how we see it. And that's where so many of us get stuck. We go around saying things like, he made me feel stupid. She ruined my day. But pause for a second. Did they really make you feel that way? Or did you assign meaning to their words and let that meaning spiral out of control inside your head? The ancient Stoics put it simply, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about those things. That wasn't just philosophy, it was psychology. Centuries before psychology had a name. Imagine this, you're at the gym, someone glances your way and frowns. Immediately, your brain lights up. Are they judging me? Do I look weird? Am I doing this wrong? But maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they weren't even looking at you at all. And yet, in a matter of seconds, you've gone full spiral mode over a guess, a story, a narrative you created out of thin air. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's exactly what's happening here. You're not responding to truth. You're responding to a projection. Most of us don't see the world clearly. We see it through the lens of our own fears, stories, and past experiences. So, what do we do about that? So, as we saw earlier, most of us aren't reacting to reality, reacting to what we believe reality means. But where do those beliefs come from? We see the world not as it is, but as we are, through a fog made of old hurts, broken trust, and fears we never really dealt with. If your heart's ever been broken, you start to look at love with suspicion, waiting for it to fail. If you've been criticized over and over, even a harmless comment can sound like an attack. It's like trying to navigate life through a cracked lens. Everything becomes distorted, and everything starts to feel personal, even when it isn't. Single quotes to Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And he didn't mean that as a philosophical riddle. He meant it as a call to take ownership of your perception. Because if you don't, you stay trapped. Trapped in a cycle of overreaction, where every small thing feels like a threat. Where every time you snap without thinking, you reinforce the belief that you have no control, that the world owns your peace, that your emotions are at the mercy of what's around you. But that's not the truth. That's the illusion. The world might poke you, but only you decide whether it hurts. What's actually happening is this. Your brain is running an old script. Something happens, you label I to react. Instantly. Automatically. But what if you didn't? What if you paused? Asterisk, what if right? In that split-second space between stimulus and response you created choice. That little pause. That's where your true power lives. Aristotle said it best. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. And that right there, that's emotional intelligence. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about feeling them fully but with awareness. Letting them move through you, not control you. Here's the shift that can change your entire life. Start questioning what you feel, not with self-doubt, but with curiosity. Next time something sets you off, pause and ask, is this really about them, or is this touching something deeper in me? That question alone is like breaking a spell. It snaps you out of the old mental pattern. It invites a new lens, a new way of seeing. Instead of living like a puppet jerked around by every trigger, you start living like a person. Clear, centered, steady, Plato believed. Reality is but a shadow of the truth. Meaning, what you think is real is often just a version your mind has shaped. So ask yourself, is this moment the truth? Or just my interpretation of it? And if it's just a story, do I really want to keep telling it? The people who stay calm under pressure, the ones who don't get rattled by the small stuff, they're not numb, they're clear. They've trained themselves to stop reacting on autopilot. And every time they pause, they build something powerful inside. That pause creates space. That space becomes peace. That peace becomes strength. And that strength, it becomes a quiet kind of power. Power that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. And here's the beautiful truth. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. Every time you catch yourself spiraling and choose not to follow it, you win. Every time you pause instead of explode, you grow. Every time you challenge the story instead of swallowing it whole, you reclaim your mind. So, next time life presses your buttons, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Instead ask, what inside me is allowing this to affect me? Because that is where the real work begins. That's the difference between being a puppet of your emotions and becoming the quiet master of your mind. Stoicism wasn't about being emotionless. It was about mastering emotion, so that nothing and no one can control the peace within you. But how do you actually practice that in daily life? So as we began to see, mastering your emotions isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. Because the moment you stop reacting to everything, you begin to reclaim your peace. And when you control your peace, again, that's real freedom. But here's the thing. From the moment you were old enough to understand words, you were being trained, and not in a way that serves you. You were conditioned to believe your worth is tied to what others think of you. That fitting in is more important than being at peace. That your value is measured in likes, applause, and outside approval. Asterisk. And the wildest part, you didn't even notice it happening. None of us did. Because it wasn't loud. It was silent. It was the water we were all swimming in. Parents, teachers, media, culture, all sending the same message. Care what people think. Care a lot. But this wasn't just random. This wasn't a personal glitch. It was systemic. The world around you is built to keep you reactive. Think about it. Social media algorithms don't reward peace. They reward outrage, drama, and comparison. You scroll for 5 minutes, and suddenly, your life doesn't feel like enough. You feel behind, like you're missing something. Why? Because that feeling keeps you hooked. Every like, every comment, every video, it's engineered to tie your attention to external validation. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." But still, we chase those opinions, as if they define us. And it doesn't stop there. Marketing plays the same game on an even deeper level. Entire industries are built on this strategy. First, make you feel like something is wrong with you. Then, sell you the fix. Too old, too young, too quiet, too loud. too broke, too late. The message is always the same. You're not enough, unless you buy this. Asterisk, and the wildest part. You didn't even notice it happening. None of us did, because it wasn't loud, it was silent. It was the water we were all swimming in. Parents, teachers, media, culture, all sending the same message. Care what people think. Care a lot. But this wasn't just random. This wasn't a personal glitch. It was systemic. The world around you is built to keep you reactive. Think about it. Social media algorithms don't reward peace. They reward outrage, drama, and comparison. You scroll for 5 minutes and suddenly, your life doesn't feel like enough. You feel behind, like you're missing something. Why? Because that feeling keeps you hooked. Every like, every comment, every video, it's engineered to tie your attention to external validation. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." But still, we chase those opinions, as if they define us. And it doesn't stop there. Marketing plays the same game on an even deeper level. Entire industries are built on this strategy. First, make you feel like something is wrong with you. Then, sell you the fix. Too old, too young, too quiet, too loud, too broke, too late. The message is always the same. You're not enough, unless you buy this. And the more insecure you are, the easier it is to sell to you. That's why emotional reactivity isn't just a personal weakness. It's a profit model. The more triggered you are, the more predictably and profitably you become. Carl Jung nailed it when he said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And what better way to avoid your soul than by constantly being dragged into other people's drama, opinions, and expectations? If you're always reacting, you never get still enough to ask yourself, what do I really want? What actually matters to me? And now, let's talk about something even more personal. Relationships. Because sometimes, the people closest to you, even if they don't mean to feed off your emotional reactions. Toxic dynamics thrive when you explode, panic, or second guess yourself. They depend on it. If they know how to push your buttons, they know how to control you. And that's the uncomfortable truth. The more emotionally reactive you are, the easier you are to manipulate. The moment someone figures out what triggers you, they've got you on a leash. Plato once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." But maybe the better question is, who actually has power over you? Now, picture this. Imagine there's a giant control panel strapped to your chest. Each button is clearly labeled insecurity, anger, fear, jealousy, guilt, and the people around you. They know exactly which button to press. Someone taps the insecurity button, suddenly you're spiraling in doubt. Someone hits anger, and you're shouting before you even realize why. That's how most people live. Exposed, reactive, easy to provoke. But what if you could make the switch? What if you could unplug that control panel altogether? What if someone said something nasty, and instead of exploding, you just looked at them calmly, and nothing inside you moved? So what happens when you unplug that control panel? When someone tries to push your buttons, and nothing happens? You just don't react. You don't feel the need to prove your worth. You don't lash out. You don't spiral, or explain, or overanalyze. In fact, you don't even feel it the same way anymore. And no, that's not indifference. That's power. Socrates once said, "He who is not a good servant will not be a good master." If you can't learn to manage your own emotions, how could you ever hope to lead your life with clarity, with purpose, with peace? Asterisk, when you finally unplug from the constant urge to react, you begin to experience a kind of freedom most people never even taste. You stop rushing to explain yourself. You stop obsessing over how a text sounded. You stop taking things personally that were never even about you in the first place. You become still steady, like a rock in the middle of a storm. Unmoving, even while the world around you spins in chaos. And people start to notice. Not because you're loud, but because your peace is unmistakable, unshakable, quietly powerful. Sure, some people might call you cold. Let them. What they don't understand is that what looks like detachment is actually discipline. It's you choosing not to give away your peace of mind like it's free candy for anyone who demands it. Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." And when you truly know who you are, when you're anchored deep in that truth, nobody else's noise can shake you. So no, you're not heartless for not reacting. You're not rude for protecting your energy. You're just done letting people play with your inner world like it's theirs to control. You've unplugged the panel. You've taken back the controls. And in a world addicted to chaos, that kind of calm, that's a superpower. But here's the secret. The world doesn't actually want you to be calm. It wants you reactive. It wants you impulsive, constantly offended, always on edge. Because that's what keeps the machine turning. But the moment you stop giving them your reaction, you break the cycle. You stop being a puppet and start becoming the master of your own reality. That's Stoicism in action. Not just as a concept, but as a daily practice. Every time you choose not to react, you train your mind to serve you. Every time you protect your peace, you reinforce your personal freedom. And in that quiet space, that sacred pause between what happens and how you respond, you realize something life-changing. Nothing outside of you can truly control you, unless you give it permission. Now, some people might say, staying calm means you don't care anymore, that you're distant, weak, emotionally shut down. But let's clear that up right now. Real detachment isn't about caring less. It's about caring right. It's about refusing to let every little thing hijack your mood or steal your focus. Because here's the truth. The more reactive you are, the more control the world has over you. And if everything gets to you, how will you ever have the energy left to focus on what truly matters? The Stoics had a word for this. Apatheia, not apathy, as we use it today. Not numbness or indifference, but a deeper, wiser calm. A kind of inner stillness where your soul remains untouched, even as the world moves around you. Asterisk, imagine yourself like a strong, rooted tree in the wind. The wind blows. The noise swirls. But you don't bend. You remain steady, present, unmoved. That's what real detachment feels like. So, how do you build that kind of strength? It starts with one simple shift. Observe. Don't absorb. Let's say you walk into a room full of tension. People are snapping. The air feels heavy. The old version of you might have soaked all of that in without even noticing. Irritated, anxious, suddenly in a bad mood. But the wiser version of you, the grounded version. So, what happens when the wiser version of you walks into that same tense room? You feel the heaviness in the air. You notice the tension, but you don't let it enter. You don't absorb it. You don't carry it. Instead, you calmly acknowledge, okay, they're going through something, but you don't make it yours. You don't turn their chaos into your burden. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And that quote hits harder when you realize most of what triggers you isn't even personal. It's projection. It's reflection. It's your own unresolved stuff asking to be seen. Now let's talk about one of the most underrated forms of power in today's world. Silence. More specifically, mastering the pause. Because we've been trained to react instantly. Someone throws shade. We're expected to clap back. Someone questions us. We defend. We explain. We prove. But what if, just for a moment, you didn't? What if instead of reacting, you paused? Just a breath, a beat, a moment of stillness. You hold the silence, not out of fear, but because you're in control. That tiny space between what they say and what you choose to do next. That's your power. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That pause. That is the power to revoke, to reclaim, to rewrite the script. And here's where the shift becomes real. Starve the drama. Drama survives on one thing: your attention. Gossip. It only spreads when you bite the bait. Arguments. They only ignite when both sides keep lighting the fuse. Toxic people. They thrive off your reaction. But when you stop feeding that energy, when you stop playing the game, the drama starts to starve. And eventually, it dies. Aristotle once said, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. But here's the twist. Silence isn't about approval. It's about strength. You're not avoiding conflict. You're just refusing to invest in nonsense. Let's be honest, this isn't easy, especially in a world that rewards outbursts. The louder you are, the more likes. The angrier you are, the more views. The more dramatic the reaction, the more viral the moment. But that kind of attention, it's empty. It's sugar. Quick to spike, quicker to fade. The ones who are actually strong, they're not the loudest in the room. They're the calm ones. The grounded ones. The ones who don't flinch at every insult or opinion. Socrates believed that self-control is the root of all wisdom, and he was right. Because when you control your reactions, you're not just avoiding chaos, you're building something deeper, character, depth. substance. So no, being unbothered doesn't mean you've shut down. It doesn't mean you're cold. It means you've grown. You've realized that your peace is too valuable to hand out to anyone who wants to disrupt it. You've learned that not every situation deserves your voice. Not every insult needs a rebuttal. Not every argument is worth stepping into. Some things, they're just noise. And when you stop dancing with the chaos starts to disappear. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Not everything is about you. Not every tone, glance, or delay is a personal attack. And even if it is, that still doesn't mean it deserves your reaction. You get to choose what enters your mind, what takes up space in your day, what's worth your precious energy. And the more you practice this, the more you observe instead of absorb, the lighter you become, the stronger, the clearer, the more grounded you feel. Like the world can spin however it wants, but you're solid, you're you. So when someone tells you, you've changed, just smile, because yes, you have. You're not here to be dragged into every fire. You're here to walk through flames, and not get burned. And that, my friend, that is what it means to be untouchable. Learn to stand firm in the middle of chaos. You've stopped reacting to every noise around you. So now the real shift begins, not outside, but within. Stoicism doesn't ask you to run from life. It doesn't expect you to suppress or ignore what's happening. What it does ask of you is far more powerful: to master your response to life. And once you start doing that, once you stop letting everything get under your skin, that's when you begin to live on your own terms, not someone else's. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, almost too still to notice, but something inside you clicks. It's not dramatic. There are no fireworks, no ancient mantra echoing in the background, just a soft inner shift, the kind that feels like taking a deep, clean breath after years of holding your lungs tight. It's the moment you stop caring, not in a cold, numb, careless way, but in a wise, intentional, freeing way. You stop giving pieces of yourself away to things that don't deserve them. You stop loaning out your peace to situations that never earned your attention in the first place. And the world around you, it starts to change. Quietly, gradually. People who once poked at your insecurities, they back off. That passive-aggressive comment that used to haunt your mind for hours, now it just passes through like a breeze. The inner tug-of-war you've been having with people, with regrets, with old wounds. It loosens, and then you see it. So much of your stress was never about the world. It was about your attachment. You're overthinking your story. Most of the things that drained your energy, they weren't real, at least not in the way you believed. They were reactions, projections, loops in your mind. And now, without those automatic reactions, life starts to feel lighter, clearer, less like a fight and more like a flow. That's the quiet power of emotional stillness. The Stoics believed that tranquility wasn't just good, it was the ultimate good. Marcus Aurelius said it plainly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Because the minute you stop reacting to everything, the outside world starts losing its grip on your emotions. That's when real strength enters. Not loud, not aggressive, but calm, rooted, unshakable. But here's the catch. Most of us were conditioned to react since childhood. Asterisk, you feel stress. You panic. Someone criticizes you. You rush to defend. You make a mistake. You spiral into shame. It's like your brain came preloaded with a script. And as soon as life hits play, you repeat the same emotional scenes again and again. But what if you rewrote the code? What if stress hit, and instead of scrambling, you just breathed? No frenzy, just presence. What if someone's criticism landed, and instead of justifying yourself, you simply smiled? Not because you're passive, but because you're not owned by it anymore. Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But once you do, once you embrace who you are, no external judgment can truly wound you, because you're no longer trying to perform. You're just being. Reprogramming your emotional responses doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming free. Every time you interrupt the automatic panic, every time you choose calm over chaos, grace over defensiveness, you're laying down a new mental track. And slowly, your brain learns. We don't do drama anymore. We don't chase noise. We do peace. We do presence. We do quiet power. Here's a question that can shift everything. What story are you telling yourself right now? Because every emotion is tied to a narrative. If you see yourself as a victim, you'll carry pain. If you see yourself as the villain, you'll carry shame. But if you decide right now, that you are the hero of your own story. Then every setback becomes a plot twist. Every insult becomes fuel. Every hard moment becomes part of your rise. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." And that victory, it begins the moment you own your story. Now, let's talk about how to keep rewriting it one conscious choice at a time. So now you've reclaimed the story. You've stopped reacting on autopilot. You've learned to pause, to question, to shift perspective. But there's one more step, the final move, that changes everything. When something triggers you, stop and ask yourself, what frame am I using here? Because while you can't always control the facts, you can always control the frame. And that choice over time reshapes your entire emotional landscape. Your world may stay the same, but how you experience it, that transforms. Asterisk. Now let's talk about one of the sharpest tools in your emotional arsenal: disarming people without ever lifting a finger. There's a quiet kind of power. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't defend, doesn't even flinch. It just smiles and stays still. When someone throws an insult, expecting fire, and you respond with stillness, it rattles them. You're too quiet. Yeah, I like my peace. You don't care, do you? Not about things that don't matter. You think you're better than everyone. I think I'm better than who I was yesterday. You're not dodging the jab. You're catching it mid-air and turning it into nothing. No tension, no resistance, no wasted energy. That's what Socrates meant when he said, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training." It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. And the same goes for the mind. Why grow old, never having trained your emotions? Why live your whole life ruled by knee-jerk reactions? When you stop caring about the meaningless noise, you create space to care deeply about what does matter. Stop wasting energy defending yourself to people who were never really listening. You stop trying to win battles that were never yours. You stop proving things to people who already made up their minds. And in that space, you begin to build, to grow, to live. Asterisk. You protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You walk into rooms not with pressure, but presence. You enter conversations with clarity, not fear. You become the person who doesn't just survive the storm. You are the calm within it. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally started caring about the right things. That shift, it's rare. Most people never reach it. But you can. If you keep practicing these small, subtle shifts, if you keep questioning your story, rewriting your scripts, if you keep choosing your peace over your pride, then one day, you'll look back and realize, you didn't just survive life. You mastered it. When you stop letting the world control your reactions, you don't become colder. You become clearer, calmer, stronger. That's the kind of power no one can take from you. The kind you carry quietly, deep in your bones. And once you taste it, there's no going back. If this message spoke to something inside you, there's another video on screen right now that'll take you even deeper. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you for being here, for thinking deeper, for walking this quiet path with us. Until next time, stay grounded and keep walking.